Hey, what's good, everybody? It's me, your hero, Benjamin Banks, and you're watching Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks, and it is another brand new episode of Who's That Cosplayer? And joining me today is somebody that is really awesome. You know, I say that all of the cosplayers that I interview are awesome, which is true because everybody that cosplays is awesome. So, again, joining me today, somebody that's really awesome, is Astravoid Cosplay. Astra, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. How are
Hey,
you?
I'm doing perfect. I'm fine. I'm having a good day, and I'm excited that you're excited to be here. I'm excited because I'm excited to be here, but there is something approaching us, and that is the Great Turkey War, which I am not excited about. So we are going to talk about that in today's interview once we get towards the end of it. So before we get into today's interview, everybody that's watching, make sure that you like this video, you subscribe to the channel, and you hit that bell button so that way you're always notified when we have new content here on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. And as D always says, podcast link down below in the description. Like, follow, subscribe. So let's go ahead and get into today's interview. So, Astra, the first question I ask each and every guest is, what is your origin story? Every hero or villain has one, and since you're cosplaying as Starfire, I would assume that you're a hero. So tell everybody your origin story.
Yeah, so, well, I started right when I was out of high school. When I was in high school, I was very obviously in theater. And once I graduated, you know, the college that I went to, they didn't offer a theater program. Or at the very least, if they did, you know, you had to be majoring in theater for it. I majored in forensic science, so obviously that wasn't going to work. And so I didn't have a creative outlet anymore. And I had, my first one was Gamora, and I have had it for a while. And my mom one day was scrolling through Facebook, and she was like, "Hey, Astra, you've always wanted to go to one. We didn't know that there was one nearby. Do you want to go to a Comic-Con?" And I was like, "Oh my God, yeah." And I had everything. So I got up that morning at like 4 a.m, and I was way too excited. And I did it all, and I've been hooked ever since. So that is kind of how I started.
That's awesome. And I love that Gamora was your first cosplay. Now, with her being your first, did Guardians of the Galaxy, did it just come out?
So it was actually my first because when I was in theater, they had this thing called the International Thespian Society. Mm-hmm. And it was a tradition at my school where each year we would dress up on the day of induction for like whatever we wanted. It could be movies, theater, TV, anything. And so for my senior year, everybody for the class was like, "We need to do something really cool. Nobody's done it all together before as a class." And so they're like, "Oh, let's all do Marvel." And of course, all the easy characters were taken, like Black Widow and Captain America. And I was laughing. I was like, "What am I going to do?" And they were like, "Well, you're the makeup artist. Like, you're great at doing stuff. Why don't you do Gamora?" And I was like, I am crazy enough to do Gamora. So I had everything. And I want to say that was around the time that Infinity War Endgame must have just come out at that point. So I still just had it, got it, and I did it. It was crazy. I think I got up even earlier that morning for school to paint myself green than I ever had for any other cosplay thing. But
That's awesome. Now, you know, when I was doing my research on like some of the amazing cosplays that you've done, and I was putting my slideshow together, I see that you're a huge comic book fan. Like, I see a lot of Marvel, I see a lot of DC, but I see more Marvel than I see DC. So I want to ask you, why do you like Marvel more than DC? Or do you like DC more than Marvel, but you're just doing the Marvel cosplays?
I honestly, I wish I could say I like both equally. I think growing up, I liked both equally. You know, I grew up in a house where I was very fortunate. Like, my dad was a major nerd. And my mom was also, she kind of got like sucked into it over time. Yeah. And it just became a family thing. So growing up, you know, like, we would go to the movies as a family. It was always the Avengers and like Marvel stuff and sometimes DC, but it was mostly Marvel. And so when I was young, that's how it started. And then as I got older, when I was little, I was always obsessed with Catwoman. I have every single Catwoman comic. This isn't a joke. I have a whole stack. Nice. I collected them. And I dressed as Catwoman for like 6 years for Halloween. So like there's a very like equal love, I think. And for me, I guess, when I did get older, I got into cosplay for certain DC, well, I'm in a DC character now, so this doesn't look good. But, you know, I had obvious favorites, but I don't know, I guess I just kind of started with it and gravitated that way. And then as I've continued, I've been cosplaying for almost 4 years now. Nice. 3.5, 4. And as I've gotten more into it, I try to keep it equal, but I don't know. That doesn't really answer your question. I realize I rambled. I'm sorry.
No,
I love them both.
I love them both. Hey, we snowball up here all the time, so that's totally fine, man. So I wanted to ask you now because you are cosplaying as Starfire. Teen Titans, of course, we all grew up watching the show, and of course, Teen Titans Go came out, and at first people didn't like it. I mean, some people still don't like it, but then it grew on you. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I want to ask you now because the Titan show is coming back, and I'm a fan of that show. Now, of course, when the costumes first came out, everybody was trashing the show. But then once people, actually watched the show, they was like, man, this is a really good show. So I want to know, are you a fan of the Titan series?
I'm definitely more so a fan of like the old school animated Teen Titans. Like
Okay.
growing up, because I grew up with too, like the original Japanese intro. I could literally probably sing it for you right now because I was so obsessed with that as a kid. Like that was Starfire was my bi-awakening. So that was one of the big things for me, and she does mean a lot to me for that reason. But yeah, that one was a big thing. I was really into that show, and then when Teen Titans Go came out, like you said, totally ruined it for me. I was so upset. I was like, what did they do to my baby? And I don't mind Titans. I don't know. It's not really my vibe, I guess.
Yeah.
But I respect it. So
I feel you on that. I mean, it's more of a darker vibe. And I mean, like, they do have a lot of cool stuff going on up there, but I totally understand if it's not something that you can really connect to. Because I feel like it's one of those shows where it's just like, if you like the dark side of DC, you'll really enjoy it. But if you're somebody that enjoyed Teen Titans, which is available on HBO Max, and something that I watch, whenever I get a free chance. And let me ask you, what was one of your favorite episodes from Teen Titans?
Oh my gosh. That takes me back. Oh my gosh. I don't know if... So I was a really big fan of the whole Slade arc in that show. I really enjoyed that. I was also like, a kid. So I was a sucker for like the little... I think it was the prom episode, or it was one of the episodes with Blackfire in it, where you finally got to see Starfire and Blackfire interact and the back and forth. I loved that. I was a big fan of that. But I loved like the really dramatic episodes. I was a big fan of that.
Yeah, like the one episode where the one guy, he kept on calling Starfire. I can't remember what he was calling her, but it was a racist term. And,
yes.
And like that was a good episode. And like when I was younger, and when Cyborg, it was like I can't remember, but it was somewhere along the lines of Barg or something. But anyway, Cyborg, he had called her that, and she was just like, oh, like that means that I'm nothing or something like that. And I just really wanted Cyborg to be like, Star, I understand because I'm black. Like he was just like, I'm robot. I was just like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, it was like well, I wish they would have said it bluntly like that, but it was like the almost kid-friendly version of that.
PG. Yeah.
I love that. Like I actually got a lot of crap growing up too with my like peers in school because when I was younger and we would talk about Teen Titans, Starfire was like one of my favorites, but my favorite was actually Cyborg. And so I would talk about it and people were like, and I was like, no, like he's really cool. He's like part of a robot and like he has a blaster for an arm. I want a blaster for an arm.
Yeah.
Like, I was so happy when Zack Snyder's Justice League was like released and you actually got to see more of like that whole backstory for him. I was really excited about it. I was like, yeah, finally. Like
yeah, it definitely made him a better character than the original, the Josh Whedon version. Because it's like they just cut so much stuff. But when you watch the Zack Snyder version, it's like Cyborg is treated like a main character. I like that all of the characters are treated like main characters instead of in Josh Whedon's version. I think only Batman and Wonder Woman were treated like the main characters. It's just like, no, like it's just like make it different than the Marvel movie, So now I want to ask you, because one of my favorite con moments was when I met you at VA Comic-Con. And I remember I had just finished interviewing somebody and you were running towards the trash can. And I was like, oh, snap, it's Max. And it's just like, you're Mad Max from Stranger Things. It's so spot on. Like when I had did the interview and I posted the pictures online, my co-host Rebellious D, he was like, yo, that Mad Max cosplayer, like she looks just like Max. I was like, bro, I know. So I want to ask you, what is one of your favorite con moments from over the years that you've had?
I get asked this question, and like, what's funny is The answer hasn't really changed, even though I've been to so many Comic-Cons now.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that like my top one ever has to be, ironically, I think it was my first con. It was either my first or my second, but it was really, really early on when I started. And there was this little kid, and I was in Gamora, and he like ran up to me from across the con floor, and he saw me, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Gamora!" And he comes like running up to me, and he's like hugging me, like, giving me high fives, and then he was just like so elated to see me, but like not me, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I was just, it made my heart so happy, and like I thought that was the tip of the iceberg, and it wasn't, because before he left, his mom came to find me, and she was like, "We had to track you down because my son wouldn't let us leave until he told Gamora goodbye." And so he hugged me again, and I gave him a high five, right? And so that was the end of the day. I went home, and then later on, the mom had found me on my socials, and she messaged me, and she was like thanking me, saying how much I made his day, and it made me cry because she was talking about how she took a picture where he was like showing his hand, like the little green on his hand, I think. And she was like, he's currently crying because he had to wash his hands and he lost the green that Gamora gave him. And he wanted more. It made my heart break. And then later on in the coming years, when I would become a guest and like do that, he showed up again, and they found me again when I was in Black Widow. And so it was like a cute little, like, I don't know how to explain it. It made my heart happy. And I think that being one of my first con experiences was a way of me knowing, like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing, you know, like this is probably what I meant to do. So
yeah, that's awesome. And you know, that's one of the cool things about cosplaying, because you never know whose day you're gonna make when they see you dressed up as one of their favorite characters. It's like, of course you're going dressed up as, you know, some of your favorite characters and whatnot, but when you have moments like that, when that little kid came up to you and was just like, "Oh my God, like I can't believe that I'm meeting Gamora," and like you're spot on. Again, like I was saying with your Max cosplay, like it's very spot on. And that interview that we did, now when I do my interviews at cons, I do in-character interviews. So I thought it was really cool that you did everything as Max, because, you know, some people, they're like, "Oh, like I'm nervous, I don't know what to say and whatnot." And I just tell everybody follow my lead, but you did an awesome job as Max. So, you know, you're welcome. So for somebody that's been cosplaying for 4 years and seeing the amount of quality content that you put out over the years, give me your top 5 favorite cosplays that you've done over the years. Who's that cosplayer?
Queen Savage.
I usually say 3, but because you got some amazing ones, I'm giving you 5.
Wow, you're really killing me, huh?
Hey, that's what I do. I ask the hard questions.
I love it though. It's always like the easy stuff, and you get so bored over it. I've done a lot of interviews, and I'm like excited to have something new, you know?
Hey, that's what your hero Benjamin Banks does.
I appreciate you. In no order, I would like to. I think it definitely. So my dad and I have done cosplays together sometimes, and one of my favorites that we did together was I did Jean Grey and he did Professor X.
Nice.
And that was one of the first things I actually got to build, because I helped him build. He has like the scooter chair, and I helped him build Cerebro around the scooter chair, which also kind of goes into like what you talk about, the favorite con moments. There was I believe that Dad said that the kid had Down syndrome, but it could be wrong. But the kid started crying when he saw us, because the dad was explaining how he couldn't separate like reality from fiction, and how he really thought that we were the X-Men. And so the kid was like crying. I felt so bad. I didn't mean to make him cry. I was like, "I'm so sorry," you know. And he was like, "I love you, Jean," and like he was hugging us. Anyway, I'm getting off tangent, but stuff like that, like memories like that I get to make, because I've done so many costumes. But like memories like that get attached to the stuff that I do tend to usually make my favorites, if that makes sense. So like that one is definitely up there. My dad and I had so much fun with that. He did Doc Ock and I did Carnage, so that was another fun one for me. But aside from the dad duos, some of the softie, Maleficent and Lava Girl are up there for sure as some of my favorites. Those builds totally kicked my butt. I won't lie.
I know they're pretty big, man.
Those totally broke me. Yeah. Those like made me question my life. I would like sit on the floor at like 3 a.m,
like, why am I doing this?
And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I I have college, like I have tests coming up. Like, what am I doing? Those were up there. Jennifer Check from Jennifer's Body. I know it's not like a super popular one, but that one for me was one of my favorites personally. I think because, my mom does all my photography, or most of it at least. And so literally one day I just had the stuff and I was like, hey mom, when you get home, if you're free, can we go take some pictures really quick? I'm just gonna try something. And I ran in the bathroom, I threw the makeup on, and I had no idea it was gonna turn out that good as it did. And I was gonna look so much like her, because I try really hard.
I mean, you do a good job when it comes to looking like these characters.
I try really hard, I do. People don't really see like the hours that go into like the makeup behind it and all that. But yeah, that was a big one. And I was just like, oh my gosh, and I like shocked myself, I think. I think I needed that at the time, to kind of kick my butt back into gear and to believe in myself. But tangent again.
It's fine. It's fine. Just keep on snowballing. And the bigger the snowball, the better.
The more content you have. So yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, no. So those ones for sure. I did a different Starfire ages ago, back like during COVID times, but I wasn't really a fan of it, how it turned out. And so I always knew, I was like, I want to go back to it someday. And I ended up getting a better suit and redoing it today. And it turned out pretty good. So,
you love it up.
Yeah, exactly. I literally, it was perfect for the theme. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so those are I'm trying to think while I'm here if there's anything else.
I think that was the 5, but you can give the honorable mentions.
I think those were the 5. I'm trying to think. I've done so much now, and it's like all just. I was also really proud of my Daenerys makeup. I was really proud of that too, because I look nothing like Emilia Clarke. So to be able to pull that off too was really cool for me. So yeah, I think I love all of them in their own ways, but I'm definitely partial to the ones that I made. So
yeah, it's just like they all have a special meaning, and that's one of the things that I love about cosplay as well, is that it's like, you can get cosplays that are popular costumes and whatnot, but I feel like it means something when you get a costume because it means something to you. Just like how you were saying with you and your dad when y'all did Jean Grey and Professor X. That's one thing that I always love, and I don't hear from a lot of cosplayers that I interview, but whenever I hear from the cosplayers that say, yeah, like me and my dad, we did this, or me and my mom, or me and my entire family, I think having that support goes a long way, because a lot of people, they don't have that support when it comes to cosplaying. And when you can go to a con with your dad, your mom, your brother, and your sisters, and like y'all can do a whole group thing, like it's just a fun time. So, pinky's up to you and your dad. And of course, like X-Men, like who doesn't love X-Men? It's one of the greatest comic book families of all time. And I say that they family. I know that they're not blood related, but everybody in the X-Men family. So
you don't have to be blood related to be family.
Exactly. Because Ben Diesel, he says it all the time.
There you go.
I don't have friends. I have family.
Yeah, I mean, like it's funny you bring that up, because a lot of cons that I've gone to, people always say that to me. They're always like, I think it's so great that your mom and your dad are with you. Every time I've guested, they're both at my table. Every time I've gone, they've gone with me. My mom joined us for the Game of Thrones group that we did. I did Sansa. She was Melisandre. My dad was the Night King. And so like it's always been a family thing. And for me, at least personally, I think it will always be a family thing. I can't foresee myself going to a con without them. So it's very rare that I'm not with them. The only time I wasn't with them was when you met me at Richmond, ironically, because I was at the table. But it's a different situation. But yeah, that they've always been so supportive, and I've always been extremely grateful for that, because I know that if they weren't, I wouldn't be able to be sitting here with you right now. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely something that I do not take for granted or lightly, because I needed them. So.
And that's awesome. And again, like with the whole thing about support, like, I'm a professional wrestler, and when my mom, when she was still living in the country, she was at every single show. Like when I was a kid, I used to tell her all the time, I'm going to be a professional wrestler one day. And she always believed in me. And it's just having that support. And even though she's not living here in the country anymore, she's always sharing my stuff on social media. She's always telling people, hey, Ben's wrestling this weekend, go support him, go to his show and whatnot. And I love that. So again, your family gets another pinky. They get another pinky for that, because that's really awesome. So now I got to ask you, when you're not cosplaying, like what are some of your hobbies that you enjoy doing?
Everything somehow connects. I wish that I could tell you that like I'm cool enough to have a life, but like it's, I can't even enjoy like just anything. Like I could go like walking downtown with my friend and like we'll be passing shops and I'll see something and I'll be like, oh, I could use that for this. And my friend's like, oh my God, Astra, like turn it off for 2 seconds. I can't. Like I don't know. I feel like every hobby that I have is somehow like related to my craft because I'm always trying to be better. I'm a really big fan of reading. I love to read, and lately I've been catching up and reading like all the book series that like I never got to really read as a kid, I guess, So like I've been reading the Mortal Instruments series. So I'm obsessed with Shadowhunters. That's a different conversation though. And yeah, I guess reading is like the big one. I'm a nerd. I'm a big nerd. I'm not as fun as people think I am. I don't like parties. So like that's my biggest.
That's cool though. I mean, like reading books, like going to the library, going to like Barnes and Nobles, like stuff like that is cool. Like in my opinion, I say this all the time. People will say that the things that they like may be boring, but as long as you find it fun, then it's cool,
Right. I think the closest thing I got to a party was during COVID, and my family and I got drunk and we would play Rock Band. We would do drunk Rock Band together.
Hey,
I think that's like the closest. I have become a master on the fake drum set, let me tell you. I think that if that counts as a hobby, then yeah, that's great. But
that's awesome, man. I still have my guitar and my drums and the microphone. And I remember I had got my mom, because you get to a certain age where it's just like you don't need your parents to buy video games for you anymore. And I remember my mom, she had asked me, she was like, well, what do you want me to get you for Christmas? And I was like, I was working at Sears at the time, and I was like, Mom, like every day at work they keep on playing that Beatles Rock Band commercial on TV. And I was just like, I'm obsessed with the Beatles now, because at first it's like I knew who the Beatles were, but it's just like when you working in a department store and you hearing the same song over and over and over again, I had to get the game, and it was so fun. So I need to bust it out again. But yeah, the Beatles Rock Band was so awesome, man.
Yeah,
so
that was fun.
We're here at the end of the interview, and like I had mentioned at the start of it, the Great Turkey War is approaching us. So I gotta ask you, what is one of your favorite dishes that you like to have on Thanksgiving?
Oh my God, I'm totally gonna break your heart. I hate Thanksgiving. Like I really do. I'm so awkward with family gatherings and I hate it. Like I'm somebody that's very close-knit with like my mom, my dad, my brother, and like my 2 grandparents. But other than that, like I'm not like super close to my family, I guess. So it's always awkward for me, I guess. I don't know. I'm just not a Thanksgiving person. Like it's gonna sound so sad. Like my family will, like do the whole big thing. Like they'll make the turkey and like a ham and they'll like have everything. And I'm over here in the corner with like a taco. Like I made like a taco. You know what I mean? Like I'm like over here like a little gremlin. I'm like, just let me eat my taco like in peace. Like I hate turkey. I'm so not a turkey person. So
hey, that's completely fine. I mean,
it's just sad ending.
No, it's cool because like I said, the Great Turkey War is approaching us, and I need to build a team. And because you don't like turkey and you don't like Thanksgiving, you're the perfect person to join the team when we have to fight the turkey. I fought the turkey before, but it seems like every year that turkey always comes back, and he comes back stronger and better than he was the year before. So Astra, thank you very much for joining me up here on another brand new episode of Who's That Cosplayer. And before I let you go, let everybody in social media land know where they can find you at.
Thank you so much for having me, first of all. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, my name is Astra. You can find me at Astravoid Cosplay on Instagram and Facebook. I think Twitter kind of cut me off because I had too many characters for my name, so it's Astravoid Cos. But other than that, yeah, I'm on TikTok as well, the same handle for the whole thing. And yeah, I think that's all of it. I think.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you again for joining me. And y'all make sure that y'all support her and go follow her on all of her social media accounts. And if you see her at a con, run up to her like that little kid did and say, hey, I think your cosplay is amazing. So with that being said, you know where you can find me, your hero, Benjamin Banks, at KingBenji_Bank on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can find me on Facebook at Benjamin Banks. I should be the first person to pop up. If not, then I need to contact Mr. Zuckerberg. Thank you again for watching this interview. Make sure you check out some more interviews we have here on the channel, along with reaction videos and reviews. Check out our podcast. The link is down below in the description. And then the video of that interview is up here on YouTube on Friday. So with that being said, keep that pinky up, stay positive, prepare for the Great Turkey War. We'll see you next time on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. Peace.
Thanks again, everybody, for watching another episode of Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe to the channel. Podcast, we got that too. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and hit that bell for further episodes and notifications. Thanks a lot to our patrons. And if you don't mind, join the Patreon. We'll be having new specials coming up soon.